The galaxy was calm. For years, the great empires of the universe had ruled, and the stars were peaceful. Alien species that had conquered countless worlds rested in their power, believing no force could threaten them. The humans, living on Earth, were seen as insignificant. Their technology was old, their military weak. No one cared to look at them twice. To the galaxy's leaders, Earth was nothing more than a small, forgotten planet at the edge of the known universe. Earth had never been a threat. Humans had never shown any signs of greatness. They didn't have advanced starships or laser weapons that could rival the fleets of the most powerful empires. They were just another species, living their lives, unaware of the dangers lurking in the vastness of space. For years, Earth had been quiet. Too quiet, some thought. But no one worried about it. The galaxy was safe. Alien fleets traveled freely from planet to planet, conquering, ruling, and expanding. The people of the galaxy laughed at the idea of Earth ever becoming a challenge. They had all the power, all the technology. They believed they were untouchable. On the quiet side of space, Earth had built its defenses, but no one knew the truth. There were whispers in the dark corners of the galaxy, rumors of something hidden on Earth, but these whispers were ignored. No one thought Earth could surprise anyone. Why would they? They were just humans, after all. Then, without warning, something changed. In the vast darkness of space, a ship appeared. At first, it seemed like any other. But as it drew closer to the solar system, it was clear this was no ordinary ship. Its sleek, metallic surface gleamed under the light of distant stars, and its size was unimaginable. It was massive, far larger than any warship humanity had ever built. It moved with a purpose, as though it was alive, its engines humming softly, but with power that shook the surrounding space. No one knew where the ship came from, or how it had gotten there. The galaxy's leaders had no idea what was happening. Some thought it was just a mistake, a ship lost in the vastness of space. But as it approached Earth, the quiet tension in the air became impossible to ignore. On Earth, the first signs of something being wrong came when the sensors detected an unknown object moving toward the planet. It wasn't just a passing asteroid or a stray comet. It was something far more dangerous. Humans had built their defenses, missiles, satellites, radar systems, but they were designed to deal with simple threats, not something of this magnitude. As Earth's leaders scrambled to understand what was happening, the news spread across the globe. Everyone heard about the mysterious ship, but no one knew who or what was behind it. The whole world held its breath. The people of Earth had lived their lives in peace, unaware of the forces gathering around them. But that peace was about to be shattered. The ship was coming, and it wasn't coming alone. A massive alien fleet appearing on the edges of the solar system. Their ships were dark, sharp, and powerful. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy entire worlds. They were the galaxy's most feared warriors, and they had come to Earth with a single purpose: to conquer. The aliens had no fear. They didn't even consider the possibility that anyone would try to resist them. They had crushed countless civilizations before, and Earth was just another small world, insignificant in their eyes. They laughed at the idea of humans standing against them. After all, how could a species that had never even traveled beyond their own solar system stand up to the might of their fleet? But what the aliens didn't know was that Earth wasn't as helpless as they thought. The ship that had appeared in the darkness of space was just the beginning. Earth's defenses, though hidden from the galaxy's eyes, were ready for this moment. As the alien fleet drew closer, a voice echoed through the stars, a voice that was calm, collected, but filled with undeniable power. "You've made a mistake," the voice said. The aliens were confused. They didn't recognize the voice, nor could they trace it to any known species. They'd brushed it off as nothing. But the words lingered in their minds. And then, out of the darkness, it appeared. The ship that had drifted toward Earth was no longer just an unknown anomaly. It was something far more terrifying. It was Earth's secret weapon, a warship built in the shadows, its design and power unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The ship's weapons flared to life, sending shockwaves across the solar system. The first shots were fired, and the aliens froze in disbelief. They had never expected this. Humanity, a species they had written off, had something far greater than they could have ever imagined. As the humans opened fire, the galaxy's view of Earth began to change. This was no longer a peaceful, weak planet. This was a power to be reckoned with. And the war for the galaxy had just begun. The shockwave from the first strike spread through space, rippling across the edges of the solar system. For a brief moment, the galaxy seemed to pause, as if holding its breath. The alien fleet, once so confident in their strength, now found themselves caught off guard by an enemy they never thought existed. The first barrage of fire from Earth's secret warship had cut through the vast emptiness of space with a fury that was almost unreal. The alien fleet, which had numbered in the hundreds, now had their eyes fixed on the unknown ship. At first they believed it was just a fluke, some malfunction or a lucky shot. But when the second wave of fire came, tearing through the closest warship with terrifying precision, they realized their mistake. Earth had a weapon. No, an entire fleet that they hadn't even known about. "Prepare to retaliate," commanded General Vork, the leader of the alien fleet. His species, the HFY, were known across the galaxy for their military might. They had conquered countless worlds, their advanced weaponry making them feared by all. But Earth, a small planet at the edge of known space, was supposed to be an easy target. Now, the HFY were unsure. The warship that had fired on them, the Earth ship, was unlike anything they had encountered. Its shape was sleek, dark, and angular. Its hull seemed to absorb the light around it, making it appear as if it were born from the darkness of space itself. The alien fleet scrambled to reposition their ships, sending waves of energy blasts back toward the human ship, but it was too fast. It moved with a grace that belied its size, evading attacks with impossible agility. Inside the warship, the crew of humans, ordinary people from Earth, prepared for the next phase of the battle. They were a mix of scientists, engineers, and military personnel, all handpicked to serve on this incredible ship. None of them had expected to face an enemy of this scale, yet here they were, standing firm, as the battle raged around them. Commander Riley, the leader of the human crew, stood at the ship's command center, his eyes fixed on the massive holo display in front of him. The alien fleet was moving quickly, but they were still disoriented. Earth's warship had the element of surprise on its side, and Riley intended to keep it that way. "Status report," Riley barked, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "Shields holding strong. Commander, the HFY fleet is regrouping. They're preparing to launch a massive counterstrike," Lieutenant Anders reported, his eyes glued to the display. Riley nodded, his mind racing. "Prepare the second wave. We hit them hard now. No mercy." The crew moved quickly, their training taking over. Earth's warship was powered by technology that had been kept secret for decades, developed in the shadows of the Earth's most secure military bases. It was faster, stronger, and more advanced than any known ship in the galaxy. Its weapons were capable of cutting through the thickest alien armor, and its shields could withstand almost any force thrown at it. Back on the alien ships, the HFY leaders were in a panic. They had no idea how the humans had developed such technology. The sheer audacity of it was baffling. They had underestimated Earth, assuming it was nothing more than a primitive world. Now their entire fleet was in jeopardy, and the idea that Earth could have such an advantage over them was unthinkable. "Prepare the hyperspace jump," Vork ordered, his voice cold and commanding. "If we can't destroy them here, we'll retreat and regroup. But we will not lose to humans." But before the HFY fleet could even begin their retreat, Earth's warship fired again. This time, the blast was even more powerful, hitting a large flagship directly in its engine core. The explosion was catastrophic. The alien ship disintegrated before anyone could react. The rest of the fleet froze. The HFY were stunned. Their mighty flagship had been obliterated in an instant. The reputation they had built over centuries now felt like dust in the wind. The humans were no longer the insignificant species they had once believed them to be. On Earth, people watched in awe as the battle unfolded on their screens. News channels broadcast the live images of the warship engaging the alien fleet, and for the first time, humanity felt something it hadn't known in generations. Hope. They had been fighting for years, quietly preparing. But now, the world saw the fruits of their labor. They were no longer underdogs. They were a force to be reckoned with. But this was only the beginning. The HFY would not give up so easily. They had been humiliated, and their pride would not allow them to retreat without a fight. They would return stronger, angrier, and more determined to crush the humans beneath their feet. As Earth's warship prepared for another strike, Riley looked up at the stars, his face grim. The battle had only just begun, and though they had made their first stand, the true test of humanity's strength had yet to come. The battle had taken a drastic turn. Earth's warship, once thought to be a mere myth, was now the galaxy's greatest enigma. The HFY fleet had been thrown into chaos. Ships were torn apart in the blink of an eye, their once unshakable confidence now shattered by an enemy they could not understand. And at the heart of it all stood Commander Riley and the crew of the human vessel, determined to make their mark. The HFY, however, were not easily defeated. Their pride, deeply rooted in centuries of conquest, would not let them retreat quietly. After losing their flagship, their strategy had shifted. They had underestimated humanity, but they would not make that mistake again. All ships, regroup. General Vork's voice came through the fleet's communication channels, cold and filled with fury. We will destroy this ship, no matter the cost. Earth will learn what it means to challenge us. Vork's orders were swift, and soon the alien ships began to realign, abandoning their disarray for a more coordinated attack. Despite the devastation, the remaining HFY ships were formidable. They had advanced weapons and shields of their own, capable of pushing even Earth's warship to its limits. On the human ship, Commander Riley stood still, observing the shifting enemy positions on the tactical map. His expression was calm, but inside, he felt the weight of the decision that lay ahead. They couldn't afford to let their guard down. The HFY were coming back with everything they had. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, Riley ordered, his voice steady. Target the lead ships. Let's make them regret this. The ship's massive engines hummed as it shifted position, dodging incoming fire with an agility that seemed impossible for a vessel of its size. The human warship responded with devastating firepower, each shot more precise than the last. The aliens retaliated, but their blasts were slow to land. Earth's warship moved faster than anything they had ever encountered, leaving them frustrated and furious. Lieutenant Anders, standing at his station, turned to Riley. Commander, they're pulling back. It's like they're waiting for something. Riley narrowed his eyes. They're planning something. We're not going to let them get the upper hand again. What's the status of the secondary weapons? Online and ready, sir, Anders replied. Riley nodded. Good. We'll make sure they know they're not fighting the same humans they thought they could crush so easily. At that moment, an alarm blared throughout the ship. It was a warning. A new threat was emerging from the depths of space. The HFY weren't just regrouping. They were preparing a new weapon, something bigger, more destructive than anything they had used before. On the HFY command ship, General Vork watched the human ship closely. His eyes were filled with hate, but also with respect. He had never expected humanity to possess such strength. But he wasn't about to let them get away with it. He wasn't about to let a single human ship challenge the might of the HFY Empire. Activate the superweapon, Vork ordered, his voice filled with cold determination. Destroy them. Let this be the end of their arrogance. A massive energy buildup started within the heart of the alien fleet. Earth's warship could feel it, an ominous hum that reverberated through the very fabric of space. It was as if the stars themselves were trembling in fear. "Commander," Lieutenant Anders called out, "the Xathar are charging some kind of weapon. It's massive." Riley's face hardened. "Get us out of here. Full speed ahead now." But it was too late. The Xathar's superweapon, a colossal energy cannon, fired. A beam of pure destruction surged across space, heading directly toward Earth's warship. It was faster than anything the crew had ever seen. For a brief moment, time seemed to slow down as the ship's sensors screamed in warning. "Brace for impact," Riley shouted, gripping the armrests of his command chair. The energy beam struck with a deafening roar, shaking the warship to its core. The ship's shields flared to life, but the blast was too powerful. The force of it knocked the ship off course, sending it spiraling toward an asteroid field. "Damage report," Riley barked. "We've lost power to the aft engines." Anders replied, "Hull integrity is at 67%. We're not out of this yet, but we need to regroup." Riley gritted his teeth. The Xathar had just shown their full power, and it had shaken the human crew. But Riley wasn't about to give up now. The fight had only just begun, and he would make sure humanity didn't lose. "Set course for the nearest asteroid cluster," Riley ordered. "We'll regroup, repair, and hit them again. We are not backing down." And so the human warship drifted toward the asteroid field, its crew silently preparing for the next phase of the battle. The Xathar had unleashed their wrath, but humanity had just begun to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. As Earth's ship slowly came to a stop in the asteroid field, Riley stared out into the void. The stars seemed distant, almost unreachable. But he knew something the Xathar did not. Humanity was not so easily defeated. This war was far from over. Earth's warship was battered, but not broken. The crew had been pushed to the limit, but they had not given up. Commander Riley stood on the bridge, his face determined, as the ship drifted through the asteroid field, trying to regain its balance. The Xathar had thrown everything they had at them, yet humanity's resolve remained unshaken. "Commander," Lieutenant Anders called out, his voice tense, "the damage to our aft engines is worse than we thought. We can't move under our own power, and the shields are down to 50%. If they come after us again, we might not survive." Riley glanced over at the tactical display. The Xathar fleet was regrouping, their ships moving into formation, seemingly preparing for another devastating strike. The alien fleet had been hit hard, but they were far from defeated. "We need to buy time," Riley said, his voice calm but with a steely edge. "Initiate repairs on the engines. We can't fight without mobility. And get me a clear path to their command ship. We're going to hit them where it hurts." The crew scrambled into action, each person focused on their task. The technicians worked feverishly, repairing systems, rerouting power, and recalibrating weapons. Riley's mind raced as he reviewed the situation. The Xathar were not just a threat. They were a symbol of everything humanity had fought against for centuries: arrogance, cruelty, and the belief that they were invincible. The Xathar believed they were untouchable, and that was their biggest mistake. Riley's eyes narrowed as he studied the enemy fleet's movements. The Xathar were tightening their formation, preparing to fire again. He didn't have much time. "Lieutenant," Riley said, his voice unwavering, "if we can't move, then we'll need to use the asteroid field to our advantage. Set a course toward the densest cluster. We'll hide behind the debris and take them by surprise." Anders nodded, already issuing orders to the helmsman. "Aye, Commander. Turning us into the asteroid belt now." The ship groaned as it slowly veered toward the cluster of asteroids, their jagged surfaces making the path treacherous. Every turn, every twist of the ship felt like a battle in itself. The warship wasn't built for this. Maneuvering through a field of debris was a task designed for smaller, more agile ships, but Riley had no choice. The warship had to adapt. In the darkness of space, amidst the rocky terrain of the asteroid field, the human ship became nearly invisible. The massive hulking vessel blended into the environment, hiding in plain sight, using the asteroids as shields. Enemy ships are moving into firing range, Anders reported. They don't see us yet, but they're getting close. Riley watched the Xathar ships approach. They were confident, thinking the human vessel was out of the fight, but they had no idea what was coming. Riley tapped a few keys on his console, bringing up a detailed readout of the Xathar fleet's energy signatures. They're preparing their superweapon again, Anders said, looking over at the display. We won't let them fire it this time, Riley said, a flicker of determination in his eyes. All hands, brace yourselves. We're going to make this count. The crew tensed as the countdown to their attack began. The asteroid field would give them the element of surprise, but it also limited their options. If they didn't hit the Xathar hard enough, they would be vulnerable, exposed, and unable to escape. Riley knew the stakes. The entire galaxy was watching. This was humanity's chance to show that they would not go down quietly. As the Xathar ships came into position, Riley gave the order, "Fire on my mark." The tension in the air was palpable as the seconds ticked by. Earth's warship remained hidden in the shadow of a massive asteroid, its weapons primed and ready. It was a race against time. The Xathar were moments away from unleashing their devastating weapon. "Mark," Riley shouted. With a deafening roar, Earth's warship erupted into action. The hidden weapon systems fired in rapid succession, each shot tearing through the Xathar ships with incredible precision. The asteroid field exploded in a symphony of destruction as the debris was scattered in every direction. The Xathar ships attempted to retaliate, but they were caught off guard, their own superweapon charging up too slowly. One by one, Xathar ships were torn apart, their shields useless against the calculated fire from the human ship. The tide was beginning to turn. The balance of power was shifting, and the galaxy was witnessing the raw, unrelenting might of humanity. "We've breached their formation," Anders shouted. "The lead ship is down. The superweapon is offline." Riley allowed himself a brief moment of relief, but there was no time for celebration. The Xathar still had numbers on their side, and they would not give up easily. "Get us out of here," Riley ordered, his voice firm. "We've got a small window. Let's use it." The warship accelerated out of the asteroid field, weaving between the massive rocks to avoid enemy fire. The Xathar were disorganized, but they were still dangerous. Riley knew this was just the beginning of a larger battle, one that would take everything humanity had. As Earth's warship made its way toward the next phase of the fight, Riley's mind focused on one thing. The Xathar had underestimated humanity, and now they were going to learn just how costly that mistake had been. The Xathar fleet had been caught off guard. The once dominant alien empire was now scrambling to recover from the unexpected devastation dealt by Earth's warship. The shockwaves of their defeat rippled across the galaxy, leaving the Xathar High Command reeling. On board Earth's warship, Commander Riley stared at the tactical display, his mind racing. Their surprise attack had crippled the Xathar's flagship and damaged several of their support ships. But Riley knew that the Xathar would not retreat so easily. They had underestimated humanity once, and it had cost them dearly. But now, the Xathar would be forced to adapt. "Commander," Lieutenant Anders reported, his voice tense. "The Xathar are regrouping. They're pulling back, but not for long. They're recharging their superweapon, and it looks like they're getting ready to launch another assault." Riley nodded, his face grim. "They'll try again. We can't afford to let them recover. We need to hit them hard before they have a chance to retaliate." "Sir," another officer called from the communication station, "we're receiving a transmission from the Xathar command vessel. It's encrypted, but it's coming through loud and clear." "Patch it through," Riley ordered. The screen flickered, and an image of a Xathar officer appeared. His alien features were sharp and angular, his eyes cold and calculating. The officer's voice was calm, but filled with contempt. "Human commander," the Xathar officer said, "you have shown unexpected strength, but you will not win. The Xathar Empire is vast, and we will crush your pathetic resistance. You will learn that humanity is nothing more than an insignificant speck in the grand scheme of the galaxy." Riley's expression didn't change, but a fire burned behind his eyes. He had heard this before, from every alien species that had underestimated humanity. He wasn't interested in words. "You've made a grave mistake," Riley said coolly. "Your arrogance blinds you. The galaxy has never seen a species like humanity, and you'll soon learn that the hard way. We don't back down. We fight until the end." The Xathar officer sneered, clearly not impressed. "We will see who fights to the end, human. Prepare for your destruction." The transmission cut out, and the screen went dark. Riley turned to Anders. "We can't let them regroup. Get us in position for another strike. This time, we're going after their command ship." Anders didn't hesitate. "Aye, Commander. Preparing coordinates now." As the ship made its way toward the heart of the Xathar fleet, the crew worked tirelessly to prepare for the next battle. Weapons were recharged, shields were reinforced, and the engines hummed with power. Riley stood in front of the view screen, watching the enemy fleet slowly come into focus. They were massive, an imposing armada that outnumbered Earth's warship by a wide margin. The Xathar had the advantage in sheer numbers, but humanity had one thing that Xathar didn't: determination. Riley knew the odds were stacked against them, but that had never stopped humans before. "All stations," Riley said, his voice strong. "We've come too far to fail now. We fight for Earth. We fight for our future. Let's show the Xathar what humanity is capable of." The crew responded with a unified cheer, their spirits high despite the odds. The warship surged forward, cutting through space like a blade through the dark. It was a bold move, risky, but it was the only way to strike before the Xathar could unleash their weapon again. As they closed in on the Xathar command ship, Riley gave the order. "Fire." The ship's cannons roared to life, sending a barrage of high-powered blasts toward the Xathar flagship. The enemy responded immediately, firing back with their own devastating energy weapons. Explosions rocked both ships, but Earth's warship held firm, its shields holding strong against the assault. "We've breached their shields," Lieutenant Anders called out. "Their flagship is exposed." Riley's heart raced. This was their chance. He knew that if they didn't destroy the Xathar flagship now, they would never get another opportunity. "Target their main reactor," Riley ordered. "Lock on and fire everything we've got." The warship fired once more, this time directing all of its firepower at the heart of the Xathar command ship. The explosion was massive, lighting up the void of space as the Xathar flagship erupted into a ball of fire. The Xathar fleet faltered, their coordination thrown into chaos. "Direct hit," Anders shouted, his voice filled with triumph. "The flagship is destroyed." They're breaking formation. The Xathar had been dealt a devastating blow, but they were not done yet. The remaining ships were regrouping, desperately trying to reassert control. Riley knew that this was only the beginning, but Earth's warship had proven one thing: humanity could not be underestimated. "We've taken down their flagship, but there's more to come," Riley said, his tone resolute. "Stay focused. We'll finish this." The crew nodded in agreement, their spirits high despite the ongoing battle. Earth had struck a mighty blow, but the war was far from over. The Xathar would regroup, but humanity would be ready. As Earth's warship maneuvered through the wreckage of the Xathar fleet, Riley couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. The galaxy had been watching, and humanity had shown that they would not be crushed. The Xathar had underestimated them, but they would never make that mistake again. The Xathar were broken, but they were far from finished. The destruction of their flagship was a blow to their pride and their war effort, but it was not the end. The galaxy was vast, and the Xathar had many ships, many soldiers. They would not give up easily. Inside the warship, Commander Riley was preparing for the inevitable retaliation. His eyes were focused on the tactical display, showing the remnants of the Xathar fleet regrouping. The vast armada, although weakened, still outnumbered Earth's warship by a large margin. "Commander," Lieutenant Anders called from his station, "the Xathar are reorganizing. It looks like they're planning a counterattack. They're focusing all their remaining ships in one massive force." Riley clenched his fists. They knew it was coming. The Xathar had no choice but to retaliate with everything they had left. The next few moments would determine if Earth's warship could survive or if the crew would face their final battle. "Can we evade them?" Riley asked, his voice steady but filled with the weight of the situation. Anders shook his head. "Not without leaving ourselves vulnerable. If we move too quickly, we risk being overwhelmed. We'll need to stand our ground." Riley turned to the rest of his crew. They had proven their strength before, and now they had to do it again. "Listen up, everyone. This is it. The Xathar will come at us with everything they've got, but we're not backing down. We've shown them that we are not weak. We've shown them that humanity fights with everything it has. Now we finish this." The crew nodded, their faces determined. The calm before the storm had passed. Now, Earth's warship had to face the wrath of the Xathar in a battle that could determine the fate of the galaxy. Outside the warship, the vast Xathar fleet began to converge. The ships were massive, their weapons charged and ready. The remaining Xathar vessels were swarming, their movements swift and deadly. The overwhelming power they wielded could easily tear through Earth's defenses, but Riley knew they had something that Xathar didn't: human ingenuity, creativity, and determination. As the Xathar ships moved in, Earth's warship adjusted its position, aligning itself for the coming fight. Riley knew they couldn't afford to let the enemy get too close. Every moment counted, and he needed to make sure they struck first. "Prepare for battle," Riley ordered, his voice cutting through the tension. "Target their lead ships and focus on their weapon systems. We take them out before they can fire." "Targets locked," Anders called. "We're ready to fire." The first shots from Earth's warship erupted into the dark void of space, striking the leading Xathar ships. The blasts were powerful, their energy tearing through the shields of the alien vessels. Explosions rocked the Xathar fleet, sending debris flying into the cold expanse of space. For a moment, it seemed like they might be able to break the Xathar's offensive. But the Xathar were not easily defeated. The alien fleet fought back with terrifying force. Energy beams shot from their ships, crashing into Earth's warship's shields with devastating impact. The ship rocked violently, alarms blaring throughout the command deck. "Shields at 60%. Anders shouted. "They're hitting us harder than we expected." Riley gritted his teeth. "Hold strong. Return fire. We can't let them push us back." The warship's cannons fired again, and this time, the target was the core of the Xathar fleet. The explosions were deafening as Earth's warship unleashed everything it had. More ships fell, their weapons silenced, their hulls burning as the enemy fleet was forced to scatter. But the Xathar were not done. Their remaining ships began to converge on Earth's warship from all sides. They had one final plan, a desperate attack that could either win them the battle or ensure their defeat. "Commander," Lieutenant Anders said, his voice filled with concern, "there's a massive energy surge coming from their remaining ships. It's a superweapon, bigger than anything we've faced before." Riley's mind raced. The Xathar were throwing everything into this one attack, hoping to crush humanity once and for all. But Riley had faced impossible odds before, and he wasn't about to stop now. "Deploy all countermeasures," Riley ordered, his voice unwavering. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We'll need to outsmart them." The warship's systems came to life, launching countermeasures to confuse and disable the Xathar's targeting systems. The ship shifted positions rapidly, using the debris from the destroyed Xathar ships as cover. It was a risky move, but humanity had always relied on quick thinking and adaptability. "Incoming," Anders shouted, his eyes wide. "The superweapon is firing." A massive beam of energy shot from the Xathar ships, its sheer power enough to obliterate anything in its path. The beam sped toward Earth's warship, but Riley had already given the order for evasive action. The warship swerved, narrowly dodging the massive energy beam. The attack grazed the shields, sending a shockwave through the ship. But it wasn't enough to break through. The warship had survived. Riley's heart raced as he gave the command. "Fire everything we have. Target their superweapon." The final barrage of energy blasts erupted from Earth's warship, slamming into the heart of the Xathar fleet. The superweapon detonated in a massive explosion, wiping out the remaining Xathar ships in one final devastating blow. Silence filled the command deck as the crew waited for confirmation. Then, Anders's voice broke the tension. "We did it, Commander. The Xathar are defeated." Riley let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. The battle was over. Humanity had once again proven that they could not be underestimated. The galaxy would never forget the day when Earth's warship delivered a devastating surprise that turned the tide of the war. The battlefield was eerily quiet. The remnants of the Xathar fleet floated in space, their ships shattered, their weaponry silenced. The space around Earth's warship was filled with debris, chunks of alien metal, broken pieces of hulls, and the scattered remains of once powerful vessels. The battle had been won, but at what cost? Commander Riley stood at the command deck, staring out into the void of space. His body was weary, the exhaustion from the battle evident in every line of his face. But there was a sense of pride, too. They had done it. They had faced an empire that thought it could crush humanity, and they had emerged victorious. "We did it, Commander," Lieutenant Anders said quietly, his voice filled with awe. "We really did it." Riley nodded, but his thoughts were already on what lay ahead. The battle had been brutal, and the galaxy had just witnessed the power of humanity. But now, the question was, what would happen next? The Xathar were defeated, but their defeat sent ripples throughout the galaxy. Would this victory be the end of their war, or just the beginning of something greater? "Commander," a voice interrupted Riley's thoughts. It was Ensign Carter, standing at a console, his face pale but focused. "We've received a transmission from the Galactic Council." Riley turned, his brow furrowing. The Galactic Council had watched from afar, always skeptical of humanity's place in the galaxy. They had underestimated Earth's potential, dismissing the humans as a species too primitive to pose any real threat. But after today, the Council could no longer ignore them. "Put it through," Riley ordered. The screen in front of him flickered, and a familiar face appeared. It was the face of Admiral Zithar, one of the most influential members of the Galactic Council. His expression was stoic, but there was a hint of uncertainty in his eyes. "Commander Riley," Admiral Zithar said, his voice measured, "we are reviewing the events of the past few hours. The destruction of the Xathar fleet was unexpected, and it has raised many questions." Riley stood tall, meeting the Admiral's gaze. "We did what had to be done. The Xathar underestimated humanity. They believed they could crush us, and they were wrong." Zithar's eyes narrowed. "Indeed, Commander. But there are consequences. The defeat of the Xathar will have ripple effects throughout the galaxy. You may have won the battle, but the war is not over. There are other factions who will see this as a challenge to their own power." Riley's expression hardened. "We will face whatever comes next. Earth will not back down." Zithar remained silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I believe you. Humanity's strength is undeniable. The galaxy has witnessed your power today. But you must understand, not all will welcome this change." With that, the transmission ended. Riley stood in silence, the weight of Zithar's words settling over him. The galaxy was no longer the same. Humanity had proven that they were not to be underestimated. But in doing so, they had drawn the attention of those who saw them as a threat, not an ally. "Commander," Anders said, breaking the silence. "What now?" Riley looked around the room at his crew, each of them exhausted but filled with a renewed sense of purpose. "Now we prepare. The galaxy is changing, and Earth is at the center of that change. We've shown them our strength. Now we show them our will to stand together, no matter what comes." The crew nodded, understanding the gravity of their mission. The HFY were gone, but the galaxy was vast, and humanity had only just begun to carve its place in the stars. As the warship sailed through the wreckage of the battle, Riley couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. But this was just the beginning. Humanity had risen from the shadows, and they were no longer a forgotten species in the galaxy. The battle against the HFY was over, but the future was uncertain. Would Earth rise to become a true galactic power, or would new threats emerge from the darkness? One thing was certain: whatever came next, humanity would be ready.